Yay Media Group.
Yo, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Cornelius, and welcome back to another episode of This is Life with Heather and Cornelius. If you did not get a chance to listen to last week's episode, I talked about replenishing yourself, how you get replenished, how you stay replenished, because you need to make sure that you get your replenishment in. How do you fill up your cup? You know, because if you are constantly trying to pour out of an empty cup, then it's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work. So again, I want to have a very, very heart-to-heart conversation with you today. We'll talk about aimlessness. The toughest part about even talking about this is the fact that I never thought I would have to talk about it. Even when I was young, I always had a path. I never felt lost. You know, I had an idea of what I was going to do. Now, that idea would consistently change. My idea was, for me, my first idea was solidify when I was in high school. I was gonna graduate from high school. I was going to go to university. I wanted to major, go pre-law. I wanted to ultimately go into law school, and then I was going to become an attorney, a defense attorney specifically. And then after that, I was going to become a politician. That was the way it was going. I wanted to go into government. If I could go to the highest level, that the presidency of the United States of America, I would envision myself in the White House. Ever since I saw the first president I saw being inaugurated was Bill Clinton, and ever since I saw that limousine driving down the street towards the Capitol, I just thought, man, I want to do that. That's really cool. And it was from that day on, I was always interested in politics and government. But I had an idea. I had a plan. Now, ultimately, that plan didn't go the way that I thought it would. I ended up going to the University of Georgia. I got accepted into George Washington University, which is where I wanted to go. I actually got accepted into Morehouse College, George Washington University, and University of Georgia. I wanted to go to George Washington University. That was my first choice. However, it was $44,000 a year, I think, around that time. It's probably a trillion times more now. But I wanted to go there because it was close to the White House. It's just I felt like this is where I probably need to be. But it was a lot. It was a lot. And then there was University of Georgia. Morehouse, a private school. They were not giving me a scholarship at all, so I had to pay it out of pocket. It would have been okay for me to go because I live in Atlanta. I could stay on campus, or I could stay off campus, stay at home, so it wouldn't be too bad. I could just commute. Then I had the University of Georgia, which was down in Athens, Georgia, which around that time was probably about an hour and 45 away from where I lived. But the great thing with UGA is that they gave you what you call a Hope Scholarship. So in Georgia, they have something that if you're in-state, if you're an in-state resident, and if you have above, I think it was a 3.0 GPA, then ultimately they'll pay your in-state tuition to keep you in-state. So I went to University of Georgia. I got my I was doing my thing. I also went there because the girl I was dating at the time, she was also going to UGA, and I thought, we're gonna get married one day. There's a love story I'm in. We're gonna do it. None of those things really happened. Had my idea, had in my head what was gonna happen. Ended up going to University of Georgia. I majored in speech communications. I was a Satanism. I got baptized as a Mormon, and I dropped out of college. So here I am dropping out of college. But still then, I still had an idea that, you know what, I'm just going to follow the Lord. Whatever God wants me to do, I'm going to do it. I ended up working at a restaurant as a server and waiting tables, Old Charlie's down in Fayetteville, Georgia. And then I went from there I started working for a church. I started working for a pastor, his assistant. And after I got saved, I was like, you know what? I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach the gospel. I'm just going to share it. And I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to start a church. I just knew that's what I was going to do. And I got married in August of 2010. And I got married in August of 2010. And then my wife and I, we started a church in January of 2013. And I thought, this is the pathway that I'm going. Well, ultimately, I resigned from that church in January of 2021, where I said, I'm done. I'm done forever. I never, ever, ever, ever want to do this again. And I was done. Now, the problem is, after you've done something for a long period of time, as much as you don't want it to be, it becomes a part of who you are. I get this a lot from athletes. It's funny. I was just traveling back from Tampa, and I was sitting down with someone in the Delta Lounge, and he's telling me how he played football, and you get to a point where either you start to realize that maybe your body isn't going to allow for you to play that game anymore, or you get to a point where you start to realize that maybe the game isn't for you anymore. Maybe you don't like the game anymore, or maybe you're aging out of the game. You got these new guys who are coming in and these new recruits, and they're just better than you are because you can't compete with this 18-year-old, this 19-year-old that's coming in. And now they have the NIL deal, so these guys, they can afford to get all the massages and all the stuff that you couldn't afford to do back then. Mama didn't have it for you, Daddy didn't have it for you. You couldn't afford all that stuff, so their body is just in better shape. They have better conditioning. They can afford the coaches. They can afford the time. They can just do things that you just couldn't do. And these guys, they get to a point they start to realize, like, man, this stuff I've been doing, it's a part of my identity. And who am I now? I coach professional athletes who sit back and they're retired. And it's just like their biggest thing is they're so aimless. Most of the professional athletes that I know, after they leave the game, they either do one or two things. Either they go three. Either they go into real estate or they buy a bunch of properties because they just have the money for it. They don't really know what they're going to do with them, just buy a bunch of properties. Or they try to go buy a franchise, not realizing the work that goes into it, so it usually goes under. Or they become financial advisors. They have some financial advisement company hires them, not because they're knowledgeable about finances, but because ultimately the financial advisement company, they want to know their network. So if I got to pay this guy $150,000 to bring him onto the team, then that's cool because now I'm going to wine and dine him because I want to know your network because you've been in the industry. And guess what? They'll listen to you because you've been a running back before. So let's get all the other running backs that just got an NIL deal or just got these deals, and let's get these guys in so that they could come and put their money with our company. And then now we're gonna give you a percentage of it. And then now you just become another ploy to another system. You were once a gladiator in a stadium to entertain a bunch of other fans. And now afterwards, you're just another person that they put in a seat just so they can get everything from you because they don't really want you. And you start to think to yourself, like, man, who am I? And like, what am I supposed to be doing? And you start to lose your identity. You start to lose who you are. And not only that, but I got into a point where I had lost my confidence. It's like you get talked about so bad. You feel so hurt by people that you loved on. And it's just like, man, that's one of the hardest pieces. You just like, I loved you. You know what I mean? But you walk through those things. And in walking through them, you're figuring out bits and pieces of who you are, but it's almost like you left something that spoke to your identity. And so I found myself just completely aimless. I have no idea what I want to do. I would go and I sit down with my friends and they say, well, Cornelius, what are you doing now? I don't know. I have no idea. And I went to Kentucky, and I sat down with my facilitator. I did this what they call a life plan. I sat down with Pastor Virgil Grant. He is just the complete opposite of me. I mean, this older white guy who lives in Kentucky, in Richmond, Kentucky. Everything about it was just a crazy experience. I mean, I left California on a Wednesday at 10:30 p.m., landed in Cincinnati, Ohio at 6:15 a.m. and then drove an hour and 40 minutes to Richmond, Kentucky. But on the way, I did find a Waffle House. You'd be happy to know that I did stop at Waffle House because we don't have Waffle House in California. I stopped at Waffle House and I had an amazing, amazing time. I did tell them when I walked inside that it did seem a little too clean for me, to my liking. I didn't see any roaches on the floor. I didn't smell bleach. It didn't smell like they had just cleaned up a murder scene. And the floors weren't sticky. And I did have a problem with that. I was nervous about that. I did tell them about that, and they said they had just renovated. So I let that slide. I also, asked to see the chef, in which this black man walked from the back, and he said hello. And I said, this is going to also be a problem because you have all of your teeth and you don't have a cigarette behind your ear. And I am also concerned that this food won't be good. And he's like, no, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. And I was like, yeah, okay, great. And then the lady who's taking my order was like, that's pretty generous. You call him a chef. She said, all he does is just crack some eggs open and fry some bacon. And I'm just like, we're laughing. Lord, me some Waffle House. I just want to tell you this story. I thought it was great. I get there to Richmond. I'm sitting down in this guy's house, Pastor Virgil Grant, and I'm sitting there, and he's getting ready to talk to me about this life plan and going over these things with me. And he asked me a question. He said, what is it that you hope to get out of this? And I told him, I said, well, I promised someone that I would keep my heart open, but I am a little pessimistic. I don't feel like this is going to work. But at the end of this, I hope to get two things, as clarity and confidence. Because somewhere along the line, I lost both of them. We started talking about some of the things that I was doing. He was like, so what are some of the things you're doing now? I said, I have an insurance, I have a life insurance brokerage that I run. I said, I have a fitness app, online fitness app that I run. And I went through all these things that I do. I said real estate, and I was talking about, I did real estate and I did all these things. And I was like, well, these are all these things that I have. And he said, you have a lot of things going on. I said, yeah. And he said, where do they all intersect? I was like, I really don't. I just have a lot of things going on. And it was so funny because we were talking about, got to the end of this thing, and he was like, well, what do you like to do? I was like, well, I love teaching, and I love fitness. I love writing. I love these things. And he's like, well, we finally used the data to be able to prove that I am a great teacher, and teaching is what I absolutely love to do. Now, not in a classroom setting. I would not be a good teacher. Like, you would not want to send your kids to me because I would have to have patience for that. And I don't have patience for that. And I would hate for a kid to come home saying, I got in a fight this morning with my teacher. You wouldn't want that. I would not want that either. We're good. But when it comes to teaching and other areas, speaking and oratory and stuff like that, I love it. I'm great at it. I'm a great communicator. It's what I do well. Writing and also coaching. And he said, well, looking at your life, he said, well, why did you start an insurance company? I said, well, after I left pastoring, I thought to myself, like, you know what? I want to be able to teach people about life insurance because we, as a church, we paid so many people's burial fees. We had to, because nobody really had life insurance. I want to do it. He said, so since you don't do anything average, Cornelius, not only did you go and learn about life insurance, but then you had to start a brokerage to be able to do this. He said, you just wanted to teach, but because you can't do anything average, you had to go and start a whole brokerage. I said, yeah, you're right. He said, why'd you start fitness? I was like, you know what? Back in 2020, the world had closed down. People are bashing me and my wife. It was just horrible. I said, in the way that I just kind of tuned the world out is I said, I have to get better. I have to turn this toward myself, and I got to get better mentally, physically. This has to be the time that I just truly strengthen up. So I started 75 Hard program. I started listening to David Goggins. I got active. I got in the gym. I just said, I'm going to jump into this. And I said, it just kept going to the point that I just started to love it. It just became so addicting that I went from that to, I'm just going to keep going. And he said, Cornelius, because you love to teach, because you wanted other people to know how important fitness was, because you love to do it. He said, because you can't do anything halfway. You started a fitness app to try to teach other people. He was like, because you can't do anything halfway, you had to go and compete in a body physique competition. He said, well, who does that? I'm like, well, yeah, you're right. And he just keeps going down the line. Because you don't do anything halfway, you had to do it. Because you don't do anything halfway, blah, blah, blah. But the main emphasis of it was that, Cornelius, you love to teach. being able to have somebody to bring that clarity and say, let's look at everything that you've done. And because of all these things, let's look at the focal point. This is what you love to do. The reason why that clarity is so important is because with that clarity, now it truly enables me to step back and say, I don't want to do all those other things anymore. I don't need to do all those other things anymore. I can finally say no to all of this stuff because I know what I really want. And when you don't know what you want, you're willing to accept anything. You're willing to accept any offer from anyone because you don't really know what you want. It's like, well, I'm just aimless. And that's how I felt. I was just out. It's just aimless, trying to figure out what is it that I really wanted, which is why it is so important to be able to have someone to sit down with you and you know, to really ask you these specific questions. And it's also important to have somebody who has been through the process that says, I know this is how you feel. Because see, when I sit down with people and I coach people through this, I know how you feel. I know what it feels like to be aimless. I know what it feels like to feel like I don't have it all together. And I'm trying to figure it out because there's very real questions, very specific questions that have to be asked to get you to understand that, yes, there is a path that you have to take, but this path that you're taking, like, yo, I want to make sure you get on the right path, but I want to make sure that, you know, the right path you get on, I want to make sure that is truly sustainable. Like, for me, I had to recognize I'm a great teacher. And I had lost all confidence in ever teaching again, which is why I said, I am done. I would get speaking engagements and I just deny. And I'm denying the very thing, the very gift that not only I love to do, but the very gift that brings so much to other people. And I just let it go. Lost my confidence for it. But the clarity brought back confidence. I know I know that I'm a very proficient and prolific writer. But somehow I lost all confidence for it. I'm not going to do it. I just quit doing it. I just quit writing. I know that I can be an extremely compassionate coach. I love to listen. And in my response, I like to be wise with my responses. I'm from the old school where I truly believe that, you know, fools talk because they have something, because they just willing to say anything. But a wise man speaks because what he has to say is worth hearing. And so I knew these three things about me, that I'm a charismatic teacher, I'm a proficient writer, and I'm a compassionate coach, but I had lost confidence in being able to just do what it is that I knew that I could do. And it took me to sit down with somebody else and say, you need to answer these questions, and we're going to use your answers as data to be able to guide us towards the goal. Now, what I did is called Life Plan. Virgil Grant, you can look him up. He's out of Kentucky. He's a pastor out of Kentucky. If you could, you go sit down with him. He does it. It's an amazing, amazing process. It's a 2-day process. Absolutely amazing. But if you don't have access to him, you know, I would encourage you to sit down with someone. I mean, hey, you can reach out to me, completely fine. But I encourage you to reach out to somebody and say, you know what? I feel aimless. And the reason why this is so important is because in your aimlessness, if you're not shooting at something, you're living what I like to call just a shotgun life. A shotgun is like, boom, you shoot a shotgun and the pellets just go out. Cool, you're gonna hit something. But at some point, you wanna live like a rifle. With a scope, I can aim with precision and I can hit the target. That's what it feels like when you have clarity. Clarity is so important that even all the way back in the tent of meetings, in the tabernacle, God made sure that there was a menorah there. And the whole point of that was it was a candlestick, this golden candlestick, because it symbolized enlightenment. Because when the light comes on, all the darkness flees. Now, that doesn't just mean spiritually, but when the light comes on, that's enlightenment. When you become enlightened because you learn something new, you're no longer ignorant. That's what clarity does. So if you find yourself in aimlessness right now, I'm encouraging you, please, 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 sit down with someone. Sit down with someone. Sit down with a coach, sit down with a friend, sit down with your parents, sit down with someone and just say, hey, I need to be able to talk this out because I don't know where I'm going with my life. I'm living like a shotgun. I want to live like a rifle. I want you to be serious about this. My wife and I, we appreciate that you guys have been rocking with us for so long. We really do. Thank you for it. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for just constantly, like, I don't know. It's like you guys like really rock, and my wife and I, we really do appreciate that. Now, I'm quite sure somebody else is out there who probably needs to hear this. You probably know them. You probably have talked to your boyfriend, your sister, your dad, somebody else who's like, well, man, I know somebody right now who's beating themselves up because they too feel aimless. Just do the human thing. Just send this to them. Just send it to them and just say, hey, if you got 20 minutes or so, check this out. Check it out. Send it to maybe 2 or 3 people that you know. For you, make sure that you like and you also subscribe. Thank you so much for rocking with us. Introduces. Until next week, I'm out.
Yay Media Group.